After what feels like an eternity of waiting, Fear Factory has finally announced their new singer who will be making his live debut this weekend, Milo Silvestro. Milo will, of course, be replacing the beloved longtime vocalist Burton C. Bell. We obviously won't know how Milo will do until the first show tomorrow night, but it should go without saying that Burton is and will continue to be very missed. All of this news surrounding Fear Factory got me thinking, though. The band has quite a tumultuous history, so what happened throughout the last 30 years that led to Burton's departure this latest time, and bandleader Dino Cazares' need to find his replacement? Let's take a closer look. Fear Factory has been at it for quite some time, forming in 1989 with Burton C. Bell on vocals, guitarist Dino Cazares, drummer Raymond Herrera, and later Christian Old Wolbers on bass. It wasn't until much later, around the release of 2001's Digimortal, that the inner tensions would finally start to take hold. The following year after Digimortal was released, 2002, the band ended up splitting due to differences both personally and regarding the creative direction that the band was heading, mostly between Burton and Dino. When asked about the split in an interview in 2021, Burton had this to say: "Well, honestly, I just couldn't work with Dino anymore. I had had enough. People change. I had changed, and he had changed as well. He just became someone I couldn't work with anymore. So I told him, I'm never going to work with you again, so good luck." He went on to add, "Well, there's a lot of personal things going on. I don't want to go accusing people of anything because I'm not a psychologist, but the person he was becoming, I was just not liking. He was not being a nice person." Just a couple of months after the split, Dino claimed that Fear Factory was capable of continuing on without Christian Old Wolbers on bass, and that both Christian and drummer Raymond Herrera were only motivated by money. Herrera later responded saying that it was Dino who was actually financially motivated, and noting that Christian had a major influence on the Fear Factory sound. He also noted that Dino would disregard and shit on the ideas that anyone else brought to the table, as well as manipulate the business management and their label, all of which played a huge role in Fear Factory disbanding. Around this same time, Burton had started a new project called Ascension of the Watchers, which is still going strong to this day, most recently releasing an album in 2021. According to Burton, though, the interest in the new band just wasn't there, with labels complaining that it didn't have the Fear Factory sound. Not all that long after the breakup, Raymond Herrera and Christian Old Wolbers would reunite, putting some demos together without Dino, and approaching Bell about returning to the fold. In an effort to get his new project, Ascension of the Watchers, off of the ground, Burton returned to Fear Factory saying, quote, "To me, to get anything out there, I felt like I'd have to do another Fear Factory record. I had a family on the way too, so I said, okay, I'll make this happen. But I saw it as an opportunity to get the Watchers out there. That was where my heart was." The newly reformed trio would go on to release Archetype, which is widely regarded by fans as one of their best releases, if not the best, along with Demanufacture, with Christian Old Wolbers handling both bass and guitar on the record, but moving to guitar full-time, with Byron Stroud of Strapping Young Lad eventually joining as the band's new bassist. This new lineup would stick for a few years, with the release of another record without Dino, Transgression, in 2005, though to mostly negative reviews. In December of 2006, Wolbers posted on MySpace, Jesus, that makes me feel so fucking old, that the band would be working on a self-produced new record immediately following the Transgression tour cycle, but this would never end up happening. Bell would go on to contribute vocals and ultimately tour with Ministry for the Last Sucker album and subsequent tour, but still out there promoting Ascension of the Watchers, and later saying in 2008 that he no longer wanted to contribute to the violence that he saw in the world, with Fear Factory's aggressive style. Wolbers and Herrera would go on to form a new band called Archaea, along with Threat Signal vocalist John Howard and bassist Pat Cavanaugh. Funny enough, Wolbers said in an interview that at least half of Archaea's first record, Years in the Darkness, released in 2009, was actually intended for the next Fear Factory record. Keep in mind, though, that technically Bell, Wolbers, and Herrera were still in Fear Factory at the time. The band was just basically on a hiatus. Anyways, by April of 2009, it was announced that Burton and Dino had finally reconciled and reformed Fear Factory, keeping Byron Stroud on bass, and with the addition of drummer Gene Hoglan, most notable for his work with Testament and in Strapping Young Lad, along with Stroud. When asked about the exclusion of both Christian Old Wolbers and Raymond Herrera in this new version of Fear Factory, Burton said, quote, "Fear Factory is like a business and I'm just reorganizing. We won't talk about their exclusion." Where things start to get weird, though, is in an interview with both Wolbers and Herrera in 2009, and Herrera had this to say: "Christian and I are actually still in Fear Factory. Burton and Dino decided to start a new band, and furthermore, they decided to call it Fear Factory. They never communicated with us about it." He also noted that the four of them, Bell, Cazares, Wolbers, and Herrera, were contractually regarded as Fear Factory Incorporated, saying it's almost like them two against us two, so it's kind of a stalemate. Burton and Dino would eventually discuss their reasoning for excluding Wolbers and Herrera, with Dino noting that those two absolutely refused to work with him again, and again saying that they are money hungry. Burton also wanted to fire the band's manager at the time, Christy Pike, who was also Wolbers' wife, but obviously both Wolbers and Herrera refused to do so. Bell also mentioned that they were about to sign a new record deal without him, prompting him to get back in the saddle again, so to speak. The band would continue on for a number of years, finally releasing Mechanize, the first album with Dino in almost a decade. Byron Stroud would end up leaving the band in 2012, saying, quote, "Life's too short to spend it with people who don't respect you." He was ultimately replaced by former Chimera guitarist Matt DeVries, who would eventually be replaced in 2015 by Tony Campos of Static X fame. Shortly thereafter, Gene Hoglan was replaced, supposedly discovering this on Blabbermouth of all places, by current drummer Mike Heller, who, by the way, is like in a million fucking bands. Fear Factory still, Raven, The Lucid with David Ellefson, and Vinny from Sponge. I think he's still in Malignancy. The guy's a fucking workhorse. A massive lawsuit regarding the ownership of the Fear Factory brand would go on for years between Bell and Cazares and the now former members, Raymond Herrera and Christian Old Wolbers. But regardless, Christian noted in 2017 that he was trying to get a reunion to happen, saying, quote, "There would be nothing better for this band than to reconcile our differences, fucking write a killer record, which I know we can, and fucking we would be doing really big tours. My passion for playing and what we have invested in this band is very big, and I know it's really big for Dino as well, because he started it with Raymond back in the day." The trademark dispute would eventually come to an end in the summer of 2020, with Dino gaining sole ownership of the name by supposedly outbidding Raymond and Christian. Now, back in 2012 or so, Burton had filed for bankruptcy, and look, I don't know how any of this works, but according to Dino, if you fail to list your assets when filing Chapter 7, they will take it from you and essentially put it up for auction, and Burton supposedly did not list Fear Factory Inc. as an asset, resulting in him having no legal interest in the name. In September of 2020, Burton announced that he would yet again be leaving Fear Factory, and when discussing this in an interview after the fact, he said, "I had been thinking about it for a long time, 4 years since the last record. Recording that new album, I was trying to record and dealing with lawsuits and bankruptcies. It was all out of control. I personally filed bankruptcy 9 years ago. But after that, the last round of lawsuits made me go bankrupt again. It definitely broke me financially." He also admitted in the same interview that the reunion with Dino in 2009 was mostly money-driven. Dino allegedly did not find out about Burton's departure until he saw it on social media, but he did say in an interview that he had his suspicions and that he felt that Burton's heart was not in Fear Factory for at least the last 20 years, which now we know to be somewhat true, as Burton repeatedly noted that Ascension of the Watchers was in fact his priority, and this, of course, brings us to the present. On Tuesday of this week, February 21st, the band announced after 2.5 years and auditioning over 300 people supposedly, that Milo Silvestro is officially the new vocalist of Fear Factory. According to Milo, it all started with him auditioning for Dino's solo project, stating, "At the time, there wasn't an audition yet because they were still going through the legal suit and stuff like that. So I think Dino just wanted at first to do a solo project because Fear Factory couldn't do live shows. They couldn't do anything because of the legal suit. Later on, he told me that he was auditioning people like me to do the solo project since he couldn't do anything with Fear Factory. But then around June 2020, he got over the legal suit and got the name Fear Factory back. So he was back in full control and he was like, okay, so I'm going to do Fear Factory. Then, the singer Burton quit in September 2020. A few days after he announced the departure, Dino texted me and was like, okay, so I'm now going to have you audition for Fear Factory as the new vocalist. Do you still want to try? And I was like, what? I never, ever imagined that I could run for the spot of the vocalist of Fear Factory. When he told me, it was like, that can't be true. It just can't. What a fucking messy saga for Fear Factory. And I highly doubt the drama will ever end, but let's at least hope for the best with the new vocalist Milo. After all that time searching, though, I'm sure he'll do the songs justice. One would hope. You'll have plenty of opportunities to find out for yourself, though, if you're stateside, as the band embarks on a massive tour supporting Static X, along with Dope, Mushroomhead, and Twisted that starts tomorrow and runs through April with the current lineup of Dino Cazares, Tony Campos, Mike Heller, and, of course, Milo Silvestro. All right, though, I gotta run. My fiance is waiting for me to demanufacture her insides, so I gotta go. But thanks so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you next time.